So in this segment, we'll be discussing free marketeer Andrew Neil hating the free market. Oh man, the irony of this statement that he makes here.
And he's never worked in newspapers, and he doesn't.
So this is about Jeff Zucker, the guy who used to head CNN, and he did not do a great job as head of CNN, in my opinion.
Know about magazines, and he doesn't know about the particular history of The Spectator. I don't think he'd ever heard of The Spectator until they bid for it, which makes...
Well, to be fair, I don't think most people have heard of The Spectator. It's a very obscure newspaper. So, you know, that's not a surprise if no one's heard of The Spectator.
What it's been and why it's lasted for 200 years. So the idea that these two vital vehicles of mainstream centre-right thought...
Centre-right thought? The Spectator is, in my opinion, very right-wing in some of the stuff it puts out. It published Robert Peston's article on herd immunity. Like, this idea that it's centre-right. It's like, no, bruv. No, where you know, the only person who would think The Spectator is centre-right is someone who's very right-wing indeed.
Should be owned by Arab money and controlled out of New York by a left-wing Democrat.
Jeff Zucker is not left-wing. Like, let's be real now. Jeff Zucker is not left-wing. Not even close. He'd be a conservative if he was in this country.
Beggars belief.
How do you know he's a Democrat?
Did you see CNN when he ran it during the Trump years?
How do you know he's a Democrat?
Because he is. There's no doubt about that. He's a Democrat.
No, there's no doubt about that. You see the way he ran CNN? What a ridiculous argument. He probably is, but you don't know that for sure. You don't know the way he votes. He will never tell. This is just very silly.
Told anyone how he votes?
Oh, really? I mean, there's no question he's a Democrat. He turned CNN from a mainstream BBC-ish type broadcast.
CNN was never a BBC-ish type broadcaster. CNN has always been a joke. The joke about CNN is the only people watching CNN are people at airports because it's on the TV. CNN will put breaking news: the Titanic sank 100 years ago. That's CNN.
Into a rabid anti-Trump, anti-Republican vehicle. Everybody knows that.
That's a classic debate tactic. You say everyone agrees with this or everyone knows this, because then it's harder to refute, because you're not just disagreeing with one person, you're disagreeing with everyone. No one thinks this. That's a classic debate tactic.
This is what he said in an interview in November about it. He said, on what you've just said in terms of the anti-Trump stuff, we always believed that our most important job was to report the news and stand up for
That's cap. The reason they covered Trump so much was because Trump was free money. Literally anything Donald Trump said was free money, because they could just charge advertisers more based on the views. That's why MSNBC, CNN, and Fox gave Trump so much free coverage.
The truth. Some people wanted to paint that as anti-Trump. We never ever set out to do that or saw that as a strategy. We saw it as pro-truth.
Yeah, he saw it that way. Everyone else saw it as, look, covering Trump is not easy. I've done it myself.
Sure. But I mean, should a government be stepping in because you don't want to be owned by a left-wing Democrat?
No, well, the government should be stepping in because I
don't appreciate how Victoria Derbyshire is affected. It kind of feels like she accepted his framing a bit there. But the whole point is, like, this idea that, you know, a newspaper needs to be protected. Like, I think a lot of the people that own the papers are non-doms. Like, they don't really live here. And plus the fact that, like, Rupert Murdoch owns multiple papers and he's Australian. So what's the issue if Arabs, whichever foreign owners own the newspapers, who cares? Would Andrew Neil prefer The Spectator goes bankrupt? Would you rather it goes bankrupt, The Telegraph and The Spectator go bankrupt, and these, quote, vehicles of centre-right thought should be getting rid of? Really? Very silly. And, you know, there's a good LBC clip on this as well.
I'm not very keen on foreign ownership of the media, because I think people, you know, actors, whether they're billionaires or media moguls or foreign governments, can, you know, use that media to persuade a country to do certain things and not have to deal with the consequences because they don't actually live here.
That's interesting, Josh.
Previous people mentioned was one of them. So on that front, I'm not comfortable with it. Specifically to the Abu Dhabi government, I'm actually finding it quite interesting to hear the sort of right of the Tory party being specifically worried about.
I thought they loved markets, Josh.
Exactly, my man. I thought they loved the free market.
Right, so this is exactly what I was going to say. It's like you can't have it both ways.
You've got to love it, haven't you?
Surely Andrew Neil should have been against, you know, Murdoch owning papers and things like that, and Sky as well. Was Was Andrew Neil against these things? I don't remember. Is it the fact that Murdoch probably agrees with him ideologically rather than Jeff Zucker would?
I love it. Well, no. Hold on a second, Josh. George Osborne is behaving like an absolute capitalist, which is you put money ahead of your principles or any other sort of values you may or may not have. So it does work for some people.
Well, no, quite right. But then you can't say that or be a part of an organ that champions that ideology and then suddenly call for restrictions on ownership when you're slightly worried.
Maybe Andrew Neil's worried about his job. I think, is he still work for The Spectator? Maybe he's just worried about his employment, especially after the fiasco of GB News.
That perhaps your anti-immigrant line or whatever might be softened by
but Josh, okay, look, well, I know we're being tongue-in-cheek about it, and so I was having a good old laugh with you about it, but look, even governments, when it comes to ownership, for example, on matters of critical national infrastructure or monopolistic businesses, will actually have the ability to regulate certain businesses, be it, the water company.
And the government can semi-regulate newspapers. They can issue D-notices, which tells newspapers not to publish certain stories. They can do that. So, the argument of, and these are two, the Telegraph, or was it I think it was the Telegraph, that's a relatively big paper. The Spectator, no one reads the Spectator, not really.
He's not particularly good job, but anyway, you know what I mean. So when it comes to media companies, do governments not have an absolute right to say, look, yes, we believe in the market, yes, we believe in ownership and foreign ownership and many other things, but we're going to draw the line at governments because it's simply too dangerous. We must intrinsically have a free press and the ability of that free press to criticise a government of any political colour, wherever that government may.
That's true, the Spectator, if it was owned by the UAE, would probably not do stories on the UAE. Does the Spectator do stories on the UAE now? It's not. They don't cover like most of the Arab countries. Like it wouldn't make any difference. This argument makes no sense. It would make sense of Jeff, what's his name, Jeff Bezos not owning the Washington Post because they did some very pro Jeff Bezos stories. So there are reasons why you would not want the kind of newspapers and things owned by billionaires or governments, but you cannot argue about the principles of the free market and then as soon as it's potentially your career on the line or a newspaper you care about, suddenly like, oh no, I don't care about the free market anymore. It just doesn't make sense. It's always, when it comes to a lot of these people, it's always rampant capitalism, except for me. That's what they was believing. Who should own the Spectator then? If no one else really wants to buy it and no one else is bidding for it, what do you want it to do? Go bankrupt? Genuinely, 200 years down the drain. I don't get what Andrew Neil wants out of this. But anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, support the channel on Patreon if you can. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one.